Hey folks, welcome back. Alright, we've got Dodge Ram 6.7 Cummins. This happens to be a 2013. These were the two codes that this thing came up with. You can see that when I screenshot this here, these were pending, which means that it's got to go through a cycle, and when it's testing these through its parameters that it's looking for, it basically has to fail it twice before it actually turns the check engine light on. So you could take this thing out and drive it, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or so. This fault will come up as pending. It takes a lot of driving to be able to get to where the check engine light comes on, at least 40 or 50 miles. I didn't take it that far, because once you get into where they're pending or whatever, they've got an issue. So basically what the point of this video is this particular problem is usually a lot easier to and cheaper to fix than this one here, because this particular NOx sensor is when it says sensor 1 or bank 1 sensor 1, what they're really meaning is there's two NOx sensors, and one of them is this one here is right above the outlet of the turbo, right at, let me see if I don't know if we can get a shot of it or not. Well, I'm trying to get this thing focused on here, but it's right there. There's kind of a shield. You can see the wire going, that wire's all coated, to protect it from the heat and everything like that. Well, that's where that NOx sensor is at. I do believe the earlier ones are down farther and right before the DOC or something like that, or before the DPF filter or whatever like that. But this is here. It actually has a module that's somewhat hard to get to. It's down there. You kind of replace it as a set. But anyways, it's a fairly expensive sensor. If you even think aftermarket ones and stuff, say I think I looked one up for O'Reilly's or something like that, it's close to $600 and some dollars. I don't even know what the price was at Dodge. They haven't back ordered, but anyways, that's not the reason. What point of this video is for this particular issue with these two codes here. Now, it doesn't say in the service manual as far as which one to start with first, because I'll show you here in a little bit. When you get into the service manual and everything, when you get in for this actual code, it will tell you, well, if you have any other related codes, sometimes troubleshoot these ones first if you have any others in here. If you get into this one right here, it doesn't say, well, if you have a P0402, troubleshoot this code first. It doesn't say that, but based on my experience with this pickup, that's what you want to do if you have both of these. If you have just the one, we'll go through the service manual and all that kind of stuff, but the easiest way to troubleshoot this thing is to get the service manual and everything. You can get them from they have a Mitchell DIY where you can buy just $20 for a month-long use of the anything service manuals, troubleshoot bolt-ins, look up parts, all kinds of different stuff. It's pretty handy. But anyways, with this P0402 code right here, one of the first things you need to check is your air filter. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but it's one of those things, if your air filter looks like that or that, this one actually came out of this pickup. This one here came out of another Ram 6.7. I have no idea how the hell that got like that, but that's how I found it. Anyways, and we'll talk about why you've got these sensors right here. You've got a barometric pressure intake. It's a sensor. It's an intake pressure sensor and a temperature sensor. So it's your incoming ambient air temperature sensor, and basically your barometric pressure sensor. This is a mass airflow sensor, and then this goes down into your turbo inlet, and then when then it comes over here, you've got another sensor right here which looks identical to that one, but they're not interchangeable. They are different part numbers. If you were to try to take that sensor and put it here, you'll find that the little plastic rim or whatever, and this is what this sensor looks like, and this is one that would go here. It doesn't fit. This little plastic deal like this is bigger on this particular sensor. Now the electrical plug is the exact same. That'll fit. So they're not interchangeable, but what you want to do is after you've, you know, inspected your air filter, come over here and pull this sensor out. You know, unplug it. There's a little Torx 15 screw right there. Pull that sensor out, and what I found was it was all caked with soot and everything like that. You can see how you can kind of see through this. You couldn't even see through it at all, and so those are most likely your issues, because you know, this with this EGR excessive flow detected. You know, that's another thing too, is you want to check your EGR. You know, it's pretty easy to check these because you can get them off really easy. What I like to do is remove these 4 screws, just pull this motor off of here, and then and I'll show you on another EGR. This is one that I had here from a different pickup. But once you pull that thing off of there, you know, this should be all the way up like this, and you should be able to move this in and out pretty freely. And what you can do is you can, if you have this line off of here, you can shine a flashlight in here, and if you see with this thing at rest like this is supposed to be closed, so that it's not letting any exhaust gas into the intake. It's not EGRing, if you want to call it that. So this is, you know, in the closed position, and that's how it's to remain. And then when the motor actuates, it pushes it here. And basically what you got going on is, if you're not getting enough air in the system here with this plugged air filter, we also had a boot. This is the inlet boot right here. It wasn't this bad. This goes right to the turbo. I think here's the other part of it right here. Yeah, and then it's got a you know, because it goes right down, you can see where that hose right there, this hose right here comes up there, and it's like a crankcase vent type of a thing. But yeah, this goes right here, and it's got that nipple on the end of it with that hose up there. This had a crack in it down here. You can see where this was old and had been cracked down here for a long time. Basically what happened was I had moved this over here to get the air filter, and then it kind of ripped a little bit more, and then I just basically, like, once I saw that, I pulled it out of there. This is most likely between the plugged air filter and this, and that's why we're getting the excessive EGR flow, because, you know, if you're not getting enough air in this thing, when this thing goes to do EGR like it wants to think that it wants to do, well, it just gets too much EGR in here, and this thing was, you know, fairly low on power and all that, which is pretty understandable. You're getting, you know, it does need to measure. It's got a mass airflow sensor, so pretty much just like a lot of gas engines, you know, if you got an air leak behind here and it's sucking air in that's unmetered, you know, this thing doesn't really know what to do. And so basically, let's go through the well, long and short of it is by the time we got all of that stuff fixed, you know, new air filter, new boot, and that sensor cleaned right there. We also went a step further and we cleaned this throttle body. There's a little butterfly throttle valve in here. We'll talk a little bit about what that thing does, you know, because there's a way to check it too and all that kind of stuff. So basically, by fixing all of this P0402, this fault never came back again. So this was could possibly, most likely due to just the wrong inputs of air and lack thereof, or anything like that. It was just not able to read this particular like it says it wants to. Now that's not 100%, but I did do the actual Chrysler repair validation that it talks about in the service manual. You know, drive for 50 minutes at such and such RPM. We'll look at a brief overview of it, and you know, this fault never came back up, and so at this point, you know, we're gonna have to just let it go and try. But it's, you know, it's nice to be able to just be like, instead of going here and just, you know, decide, no, we need to just replace this sensor, you know, $600, $700, $800 sensor wherever you find it from, and you know, that wouldn't have fixed any of this other stuff that we had going on here. So anyways, yeah, let's get into that service manual. All right, so this is Mitchell. You know, you go in here, you can find your technical service bulletins, you can get in here to maintenance, and you can find, you know, it even gives you repair times and all that kind of stuff, as far as, you know, if you're curious how long the book time says of something a repair should do. But anyways, let's go in here to repair. And I like to go, well, I mean, it's just not what I like to, but go in here to fault isolation. And this is going to give you, you know, there's a couple different ways. That's a 5.7. You know, it gives you your range or whatever. I just like to go in right here to diagnostic intake, you know, for 6.7 diesel, diagnostic code index right here. And what it does is it just gives you your whole list of faults. So let's find that P0402. Right there, you can see that it says EGR flow excessive detected right over, you know, all the way over here. So P0402, just click that, and then, you know, it comes in here, and it you know, this diagnostics is used to check the EGR flow conditions that are outside a calibrated amount. You know, this is the PCM will light the mill light after this monitor runs and fails twice. So that's why you get the pending. And then the PCM will turn off the mill light once the diagnostic runs and passes 4 consecutive cycles. Engine running, airflow actuators within calibrated range. And then we get the set condition. The EGR flow does not meet estimated flow by calibrated threshold, and it's using all of those sensors, everything in there, to pretty much calculate kind of what's going on. Maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. That's why it's very important for air filters, fuel filters, all that stuff to be changed, because it's not like back in the day with a 7.3 or an old 5.9 Cummins, you know, and you realize that you're smoking too much and you can run with a dirty air filter and be fine. Well, now you got all this stuff that's being monitored and everything like that. You got to do that. So this lists your possible causes, which exhaust gas pressure sensor. That's basically what they call an exhaust back pressure sensor. So we got a EGR airflow throttle control valve. We'll talk about that. You could have an exhaust system leak. We could have an intake system leak, which is what we did have. Your EGR valve, your intake manifold temperature sensor, or your mass airflow sensor. So you come down in here, and right here, this is what I was talking about. It says if other EGR related DTCs are present and active, repair those DTCs before proceeding. Ignition on, engine not running, check for active DTCs. Yes, go to step 2. So I don't know exactly what they're meaning by check the thermostat outlet for a restriction. That's why they're calling it that, but it's you know, remove the exhaust gas pressure sensor from the thermostat outlet. I have no idea. And then inspect the exhaust gas pressure sensor for buildup and debris. And then you know, so basically what that is so on this 2013, this is the sensor right here, and it's just mounted right here on a bracket, and then there's a tube. You can kind of barely see it, where it goes right into the exhaust manifold, if the camera would focus. But that's it, the tube right there. So basically it's a tube that comes out of your metal tube and goes right up to the sensor here. I believe the earlier ones are over here in this area. Same thing, it's just got a longer tube. They just happen to move it over here. And this is just a protective deal for heat. And you know, so you want to just remove this sensor out of here. It just unscrews. I think it's 1 1/16 or something like that. and then you know, pull the sensor out and clean the end of it off, because it does get soot and everything like that. Okay, and it just says, you know, clean it, check the exhaust gas pressure sensor tube. We were just talking about that. What I usually do is just spray some brake clean right straight down the tube without removing it, after I've removed the sensor off the top there, and then just take some air pressure and blow it back through, and you'll hear the air going into the manifold and everything like that. So anyways, so that wasn't our issue when we went through here. Checking the exhaust system for leaks. These things are very prone to getting broken bolts on the exhaust manifold. As a matter of fact, this one, about 6 or 8 months ago, it had a exhaust squeal leak, and we had some bad gaskets and one broken bolt over here. A lot of times it's this one here, it seems to break a lot, and one in the back. I think this one had one in the back. Maybe not this one, that could have been another one I'm thinking of. But anyways, that's, you know, you want to look all over your exhaust manifold, back here where that goes into the EGR cooler and all that stuff, out here, and just check for soot trails or anything like that in some of these areas and all that, because this is basically where your EGR comes through. After it goes through the cooler, it goes around in here into your EGR valve. And so anyways, you know, you can say if there was yes, it says go repair, you know, that's what these flow charts kind of do, yes, and then perform the diesel after treatment validation. That's what we'll talk about. We'll get into that a little bit. But if it was no, go to step 5. Now check the intake air system. This is where we found that crack in that turbo inlet boot. And then I did find that, but I still went on and I checked this intake manifold temperature sensor. So that is that sensor that's right behind the EGR valve. We found that all caked with soot and everything like that. And then checked the MAF sensor, just went ahead and pulled it out. So that's the mass airflow sensor. Check the EGR throttle control valve. Okay, so that's in here, and it's just a big butterfly control valve like you'd see on a gasoline engine. It's got a plug clear back down inside of here. I actually removed this entire horn and everything like that and cleaned everything inside of here. And then you know, because we'll talk about it in just a second. So you basically, what you're talking about is remove the boot from the EGR control valve. So what they're talking about here is you undo this this clamp right here and this rubber boot right here, and just kind of work it off of there and just kind of move it out of the way. And then you'll stick a mirror with a light up in there, and then you'll see this. Here's like the hinge for that butterfly valve. It kind of just does this. Now normally it's open a lot of times, and then when it needs, like, you know, doing some EGRing, if you want to call it that, it'll kind of close that, restrict the air a little bit, and let some of the EGR, you know, it's kind of somewhat of a, you know, I'm not exactly 100% sure, but that's got to be, you know, what it does. Okay, so after you know, use a mirror to look at the butterfly valve in there, and then it says start the vehicle, let it idle for about 10 seconds, and then shut the ignition off. Now what it's going to do is, while it's idling, that butterfly is going to be open, and then as soon as you shut it off, it's going to close. And basically when I saw it, you know, it seemed to move pretty good, and it closed. And then after a little bit, it's going to open itself back up. And what it did is it went about 2/3 of the way, and it kind of stopped, and then it just went like this. And so I'm like, oh, there might be possible that that thing could be, you know, kind of getting stuck. It's pretty much just like, you know, a throttle body deal on any gasoline engine, you know, that you used to be able to see a cable or something up on the top of the engine there where it would control that butterfly valve. And so that's how you check that. And then we went briefly over how to check the EGR valve. And then, you know, because here it's talking about, you know, how to check the EGR. Then it talks about, you know, cleaning it and all that stuff. There's good videos on a few that I've seen out on how to clean those things. If that does it, whatever. If not, then go ahead and replace the EGR valve, and that's pretty much it. You know, I mean, here's another fault code. If you had a EGR or P040 or P403, you know, this is more if you got like an issue going on with your the motor itself. So anyways, after checking all that kind of stuff, we fixed this particular fault. So now basically what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just pop this deal open into that other fault, and we'll talk about that. All right, so we got this P1C55, which is it's NOx sensor intermittent bank 1 sensor 1. So we'll click that. It's going to bring us right to here. You know, we kind of briefly talked about, you know, what these things do. Basically, it's the NOx gases that are coming out of there. It's reading what's coming right out of the turbo, and then it's got another one that's clear after the SCR that you know, telling you if that whole system is working. Basically, you've got your possible causes, and I don't know if these are pretty much in order, but it's not, you know, I mean, I think they just list them or whatever, but you can have an engine misfire, excessive oil consumption, EGR system leak, or the NOx sensor itself. So basically, this is what I was talking about right here. So, you know, are if any of these fault codes active? If it's yes, then repair those, try to repair these, any one of these or all of them or whatever, first before doing this particular diagnostic. You know, now it doesn't say, you know, it'd be awesome if it said, oh, if you had a P0402 or something like that, that'd be, you know, I mean, but anyways, check the cylinder, or for cylinder misfire. There's two different ways with the scan tool. You can do a, you know, I did the injector kill test. Everything looked good with that. I also did what they called a fuel run-up test, and everything performed good with that. You know, if that doesn't happen, it was check for excessive engine oil. You know, because you could have a EGR, or not an EGR, but a crankcase ventilation problem, or you could have something else. You get too much oil and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's gonna screw with that NOx sensor and everything. So check your EGR system for leaks. You know, that's pretty much, you're going from, that's just basically like we were talking about, any kind of an exhaust leak or something like that. You know, because you got your cooler right here. I think all this thing does right here is it's a bypass deal for, like, when it's really cold or something like that. It doesn't let any of the EGR back here. It kind of lets it, I don't know, I'm not 100% sure, but it's what they call it. It's an EGR cooler bypass valve. So yeah, you want to check for all the leaks and all that kind of stuff. And then it pretty much, if you don't have any EGR leaks or anything like that, goes to replacing the NOx sensor, and then perform the powertrain verification test, and you know, we'll just click on that. It's kind of the same thing. So you got your validation right here. It says, you know, this is what I was talking about, you know, have an associate drive the vehicle at least 50 minutes at a steady state of speed, so the RPMs maintain about 1900. If highway access is not available, use a lower gear on surface streets. A steady throttle is important. Use cruise control if possible. once the initial 50-minute drive cycle is complete, return to the repair shop. You know, I mean, and we did this and made sure this was all good. I didn't actually like record everything on here. I mean, this is what they're talking about, especially for warranty and all that kind of stuff. You know, and then you know, you get down here to you know, did it pass the test or whatever, and basically yes, and vehicle is properly repaired. If not, then you got to refer back to, you know, and that's just kind of what, you know, it takes a while to do that, but that's pretty much it for everything there. Hopefully this give you some pretty good information about those particular faults and everything. Now, we could still have an issue with, you know, it's just when I was troubleshooting this thing, you know, found the plugged air filter, found that plug deal, pretty much thought I was on my way, before I ended up finding the this cracked boot here. You know, that fault was coming up pretty regularly. This knock sensor fault was coming up a lot of times. Sometimes it wouldn't come up. The 402 fault would come up all the time, no matter what, within 10 minutes of driving, 10 or 15 minutes of driving or something like that. That would always come up, but it was pretty consistent that fault would come up there. But then when we got all this stuff fixed, and then, you know, you can drive this thing for more than an hour and not have it come up at all, it's most likely that it was just because of all the problems that we had here, that it was just causing that reading. It just didn't like it, and that's hopefully what we're gonna, you know, but we could still have an issue with that. But basically, really, if that fault ever comes back, you just got to go straight for the sensor, because we've checked everything as far as that goes. And this thing, you know, is obviously, it's running great. It's got a lot more power than it did when it came in here. So anyways, that's a wrap for this one, and hopefully this helped you out, and thanks for watching.